The world buzzed with curiosity when Elon Musk took to social media with a cryptic announcement. "I'm launching a humanity experiment. No gimmicks, no contests, just a challenge to see what kindness really means. To those who pass, I'll offer help with their greatest struggles. No further details will be shared. Just keep your eyes open for someone who needs you." The internet exploded. Speculation ran wild. Was it a publicity stunt? A social experiment? A new initiative under one of Musk's philanthropic arms? No one knew exactly what to expect, but people watched their surroundings with sharper eyes, wondering if their moment to act would come. Some dismissed the idea as another billionaire's eccentric whim, but others saw it as a chance, perhaps a test of character, perhaps a chance to have their own challenges lifted. As days passed, the world continued spinning in its usual rhythm, but in one small corner of a sprawling city, a young boy's journey was about to intersect with the billionaire's enigmatic challenge. He had no idea that his steps through the crowded streets would set a ripple into motion, one that would test not just humanity's kindness but its very soul. The city hummed with its usual chaos, honking cars, murmured conversations, and the faint wail of a siren in the distance. Ethan shuffled through the crowded streets, clutching his tattered backpack. His small frame was hunched, his oversized hoodie smudged with dirt. At 10 years old, he'd already learned what it meant to be invisible. People's eyes skimmed over him like he wasn't there, like he was just another part of the city's background noise. He paused at the corner of a busy intersection, the memory of his home, a small, cozy house with peeling blue paint, flashing in his mind. It had been taken from him in a fire 2 months ago, along with everything and everyone he'd ever known. With a deep breath, he approached a well-dressed man scrolling on his phone. "Excuse me, sir," Ethan said softly, his voice trembling. "I'm hungry. Could you spare any change?" The man didn't even glance up. "Sorry, kid," he muttered, brushing past Ethan like he wasn't even there. Ethan's chest tightened, but he moved on. Next, he tried an elderly woman sitting on a bench. She gave him a stern look and shook her head, clutching her purse tightly. As the day stretched on, rejection after rejection piled up. The weight of his solitude grew heavier. He found himself lingering near the entrance of a cafe, drawn by the smell of fresh bread and coffee. "Hey, you can't stand here." A waiter in a crisp black uniform waved him off with a frown. "Go somewhere else." Ethan's stomach growled, and his shoulders slumped as he trudged away. He didn't know how much longer he could keep going like this. The plaza was alive with the rhythms of the city, street performers playing upbeat tunes, couples laughing as they strolled hand in hand, and vendors hawking roasted chestnuts. It was a place of life and energy, yet Ethan felt as if he didn't belong. As he wandered through the plaza, he spotted a group of teenagers gathered near a fountain. They were sharing a bag of chips, their laughter loud and carefree. Summoning his courage, Ethan approached them. "Hi," he said, his voice barely audible. I'm really hungry. Do you think I could have some?" The tallest boy looked him up and down, his expression shifting from confusion to amusement. "Dude, what are you, some kind of beggar?" the boy said, smirking. His friend snickered. "No, Ethan trailed off, realizing it was pointless. He turned to leave, but one of the girls tossed a chip at him, landing it near his feet. "Here, beggar boy," she called, laughing. The sting of humiliation burned in Ethan's cheeks as he walked away without picking it up. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Ethan's hope dwindled. He passed a row of cafes, a businessman yelling into his Bluetooth, and a vendor packing up his cart. His feet ached, his stomach growled, and tears threatened to spill. The world seemed cruel and indifferent, its people too busy to notice a small, lost boy. Ethan sat down on the edge of a park bench, his hands buried in his hoodie pocket. For the first time that day, he allowed himself to cry, silent tears tracing paths through the dirt on his cheeks. Unbeknownst to him, someone was watching from the other end of the bench. A man with tired eyes and a worn jacket, a man whose own struggles had taught him to recognize pain. "Hey, kid," a voice said softly. Ethan looked up, startled. Sitting at the other end of the park bench was a man in his 50s. His face was weathered, framed by salt and pepper hair, and his jacket looked as worn as his tired eyes. Yet, his expression was gentle. "You okay?" the man asked, shifting slightly closer. Ethan hesitated, his instinct urging him to keep quiet. People who noticed him often told him to move along or worse. But there was something different about this man. He didn't seem hurried or annoyed. "I'm just hungry," Ethan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The man nodded, reaching into his own battered backpack and pulling out a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. "It's not much, but you can have it," he said, holding it out. Ethan took it with trembling hands. "Thank you." "What's your name?" the man asked. "Ethan." "I'm Barron." As Ethan ate, Barron listened to his story, the fire, the loss of his parents, and the weeks of wandering the streets. Barron didn't interrupt or ask probing questions. He just nodded, his gaze steady and understanding. "I know what it's like," Barron finally said. "Life doesn't always go easy on you. I've had my fair share of knocks." Ethan looked at him, curious. "What happened to you?" Barron sighed, leaning back on the bench. "Lost my job a few months ago. Bills piled up, and now I'm barely scraping by. Some days, it feels like the world's got me in a chokehold." He chuckled wryly. "But I'm still here, right?" For the first time in days, Ethan felt something like hope. Barron didn't have much, but he didn't treat Ethan like a burden. "You're gonna be okay, kid," Barron said, his voice firm. "We'll figure something out. Together." Barron stood in front of the community center's faded brick facade, gripping Ethan's hand to reassure him. "I know the people here," Barron said. "They might not have much, but they've got good hearts." Inside, the warm smell of soup and bread greeted them. A woman in her 60s, wearing an apron stained with flour, approached. "Barron," she said with a kind smile. "Haven't seen you in a while." "Hi, Mrs. Green," Barron replied. "This is Ethan. He needs a warm meal and a place to stay tonight." Mrs. Green's face softened as she looked at the boy. "Of course. Come with me, Ethan." Ethan glanced back at Barron, unsure if he should let go of his hand. Barron gave him a nod. "Go on, kid. You're safe here." While Ethan ate, Barron stayed nearby, speaking with Mrs. Green about more permanent help. Together, they made calls to a local charity and a shelter that could take Ethan in. Barron's determination never wavered, despite his own struggles. Later that night, as Ethan sat on a cot with a full belly and a blanket wrapped around him, he watched Barron through the window. The man was still there, pacing under the streetlights, making phone calls on his old flip phone. Ethan realized that Barron wasn't just helping him out of pity. He was doing it because he cared. The next morning, Barron returned with news. "The charity said they can place you in a foster home," he told Ethan. "It's not perfect, but it's a start." Ethan nodded, his throat tight with gratitude. He couldn't remember the last time someone had fought so hard for him. Unbeknownst to either of them, their actions had caught the attention of two men in suits, watching quietly from a car parked across the street. The next morning, as Barron and Ethan stepped out of the community center, they were approached by two men in sleek suits. Their polished appearance stood in stark contrast to the cracked pavement and peeling paint of the neighborhood. "Mr. Barron, Ethan," one of them said, his tone formal but kind. "We'd like to speak with you both." Barron instinctively stepped in front of Ethan. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice edged with suspicion. The man smiled reassuringly and held out a card. "We work for Elon Musk." You've been part of an experiment called the humanity test. Barron blinked, confused. Experiment? What does this have to do with us? The man explained. Ethan's story, though heartbreaking, had been part of a carefully designed test to find individuals who would act selflessly in the face of someone else's need. You weren't chosen at random, he added. You were observed. Your kindness, your willingness to help Ethan despite your own struggles, it's exactly what Mr. Musk hoped to find. Ethan's eyes widened as he looked up at Barron. Wait, you mean this was all planned? Barron frowned. You're telling me you put this kid through all that just to see what people would do? The other man nodded, his expression somber. It wasn't an easy decision. But it was the only way to find genuine compassion in action. Barron's shoulders tensed. This isn't some game. This is a child's life. We understand your frustration, the first man said. But please know this, your actions have not only helped Ethan but also shown us the kind of person the world needs more of. Ethan tugged on Barron's sleeve. Barron, it's okay. You helped me for real. That's what matters. Barron softened, kneeling to meet Ethan's gaze. You're right, kid. He turned back to the men. So what now? The men exchanged glances before one of them said, Mr. Musk would like to meet you both personally. And he has something to offer. The meeting took place in an upscale conference room, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Ethan fidgeted nervously in his seat while Barron sat beside him, his expression guarded. Then the door opened, and Elon Musk entered. He smiled warmly as he approached them, extending a hand to Barron. Thank you for coming. It's an honor to meet you both. Barron shook his hand hesitantly. I'm not sure what to say. I just did what anyone should have done. That's precisely why you're here, Elon said, taking a seat across from them. Your kindness wasn't flashy or self-serving. It was genuine, and it's the kind of humanity I believe in. I want to help you, Barron, just as you helped Ethan. Barron raised an eyebrow. Help me? Elon nodded. I've arranged for your medical expenses to be covered and your debts cleared. Additionally, I've set up a fund to support Ethan's education and future. Ethan's jaw dropped. Really? Really, Elon confirmed with a smile. Barron sat back, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Elon replied. But there's one more thing. The community center you went to, that place is doing good work. I'd like to expand it so more people like Ethan can find help when they need it. Tears welled in Barron's eyes as he nodded. Thank you. That means everything. Ethan beamed, his heart lighter than it had been in months. For the first time, he saw a path forward, one filled with hope. The story of the humanity test spread like wildfire. News outlets, blogs, and social media lit up with headlines about Barron, Ethan, and Elon Musk's challenge. Videos of Barron helping Ethan circulated online, showing his quiet determination to ensure the boy was safe. Comments poured in. This is what humanity should look like. If more people were like Barron, the world would be a better place. Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. Barron, however, remained humble. I didn't do anything special, he said during a brief interview. I just did what felt right. Anyone can do that. Elon Musk, too, made a statement. The humanity test wasn't just about finding one person's kindness, it was about reminding all of us what we're capable of when we care for each other. Let this be a spark for change. The ripple effect was immediate. Donations to shelters and charities spiked. Communities organized food drives and outreach programs. Ordinary people were inspired to look for ways to help those in need, however small. Barron watched the world's response from his small apartment, amazed at how his simple act of kindness had ignited something so profound. Months later, Ethan returned to the community center. His hair was neatly cut, his clothes clean and well-fitted. He carried a small envelope in his hand. Barron was there, volunteering as usual. He had become a fixture at the center, using his renewed health and energy to give back to others. "Ethan!" Barron exclaimed, his face lighting up when he saw the boy. Ethan ran up to him and hugged him tightly. "Barron, look!" He handed over the envelope. Inside was a hand-drawn picture of the two of them sitting on a park bench, with the words "Thank you for saving me" scrawled in Ethan's neat handwriting. Barron's throat tightened. "You didn't have to do this, kid." "I wanted to," Ethan said. "You gave me hope when I didn't have any. And now I want to be like you someday, helping people." Barron smiled, ruffling Ethan's hair. "You already are, Ethan. You already are." As they stood together, a sense of peace settled over them both. The world was far from perfect, but they had proved that even small acts of kindness could plant seeds of change. And sometimes, those seeds grew into something extraordinary.